Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members, and thank you for being on the committee to take a look at this issue. I would like to just start by saying, you know, it was a terrible tragedy. When somebody dies of gun violence, it is a terrible tragedy. And I think we all agree we want to get to sound solutions to try to never have this happen again, especially to children. So I want to thank the medical personnel that worked on the children, the parents, the anguish they must have suffered. I just can't even have no words to express if it had happened to my children or something like that. So we need to have a robust discussion on this issue, because all of us, everybody in this room, and I think the majority of, or 99% of Minnesotans do not want this to happen again. So with that, I will start my testimony. You know, we talked about different types of solutions here. I will start out with armed police officers in the school. I know that's reprehensible to some people, and I wish we weren't at that state. But I served on the school board for 16 years, and during those 16 years, we had not a shooting, but we had students doing violence to other students in the high school. Nobody came out of their classroom to stop it. No administrator did anything. And the result was at least one of those students wound up in the hospital. So we did pass a law based on the high school recommendation of putting a armed police officer in our school. And I got a lot of flack having my business downtown, I belong to Rotary, about that. And I think that was in February. Well, in April, Columbine happened. And there wasn't another word, okay? So and also a group of teachers didn't like that to start with. But in the end, after a year, all I got was accolades for having that armed police officer in the school. We didn't have another violent episode where somebody went to the hospital. So it was effective. And I would just ask the committee to think that through, because I think all of our schools need security. My understanding was non-public schools did ask for money for security when we had an $18 billion surplus. Unfortunately, for some reason, that was rejected, and maybe the committee can look into that. The other thing I would say is I have done quite a bit of research on these mass shootings, both when I was a school board and member and also here. And I do think if you do the research, sometimes these mass shooters look for gun-free zones.
Senator Gruenhagen, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're here to testify in your proposal relating to the article that you presented to us, and we are already over committee time.
Yep.
So,
but this is an important issue. Just let me, I'll be right to it.
If you can finish up your other comment in 30 seconds and go on to your proposal, please, and that's the only testimony we're going to be able to take.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think you need to look into eliminating gun-free zones. We need to support the police. Some make mistakes and need to pay a consequence, but we should not defund the police and demonize them. Second thing, the article that Senator Latz referred to, I co-authored an article in 2019 for the Minnesota Physician. The co-author was, you can find it on the internet on one of my websites if you want to read the whole thing, but the co-author was Dr. Chris Foley. He was a lecturer at the University of Minnesota Pharmacological College. He has well experienced with the use of SRI drugs. And I'm going to read his exact quote, just a short paragraph. It says, the so-called SRI drugs, long in use for the management of depression and anxiety, he mentions Prozac, Zoloft, etc., in fact, have very little scientific basis for their actions. They are routinely given for anxiety, depression, particularly in children who suffer various types of post-traumatic stress disorder from abusive homes, injuries, medical conditions, and other factors. There is very little evidence that they are safe or effective on children. In fact, they are boxed with warnings regarding both homicidal and suicidal ideations. Think about that, members. On several of these drugs that are commonly used on children. A recent expose disclosed that a majority of mass shootings have been perpetrated by individuals taking these drugs. The breathtaking elements here is the utter lack of scientific scrutiny for safety and efficacy, particularly when given on a long-term basis, more than 6 months, end of quote. I also have a pharmacist with about 30 years of experience who sent me the warnings on these SRI drugs. And basically the warnings that I'm just summarizing, you can do your own research. The warnings say it produces suicidal and severe mood swings and aggression, and it should not be used on the majority of children. And yet, when I was on the school board, we were giving it out like candy. This needs to be looked into, okay? Because the person back here who said something has changed, in my opinion, this is one of the things that has changed. We're using these psychotropic drugs on minor children without due scientific evidence, with terrible warnings and side effects. And you can research Dr. Chris Foley. He was an expert on this. Secondly, in the case of the shooter, a judge has sealed the health records. So we cannot find out right now what medication he was actually on. And by the way, there's articles out there by the shooter. He was tired of being trans. I wish I was never brainwashed. New York Post.
All right, Senator Gruenhagen, we're going to have you finish your testimony and not go down that road, please.
I find it very disturbing that the committee doesn't want to hear a robust discussion with different perspectives, okay? And then I'll bring it on the Senate floor if I have to, okay?
You will be entitled to do that, Senator Gruenhagen, but the testimony today that you submitted for consideration has to do with the use of the SRIs.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to get at.
And that's all that we're going to focus on with your testimony, please.
Okay. Secondly, I would say that, you know, okay, you don't want me to talk about transgenderism, but
that's correct, Senator.
RFK is proposing a ban on guns to transgender.
All right, Senator Gruenhagen, thank you for your testimony.
All right.
We're concluded now with this.
Yeah, we're over-medicating the children. If you want any bipartisan, especially from me, you're going to include this type of information, because this is what's, in my opinion, instigating a lot of this, and we're doing it blindly and giving out like candy to our children. Please care about the children and listen to opposing views. It's a sign of immaturity not to hear opposing views. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Gruenhagen.